Good morning, everyone. I thought that given last Friday's announced quota issuance in the QDII program, that it was important to jump on and discuss what I'll refer to as the refocusing of cross-border programs by the Chinese policymakers. I'll start by saying, it's summer in China when you'll have these relatively significant developments occur late on a Friday. This is very typical. We've seen this in years past, and my expectation, especially given that we've got this third plenum coming up in a couple of weeks, that we could see similar developments announced over the course of the next several weeks. But that is neither here nor there. What exactly can we take away from the 2.3 billion worth of quota issued to a total of 53 individual participants? Well, on the surface, it's pretty evident, at least to myself, that what you had was an enormous queue of participating entities seeking new quota. And this has been pretty clear given news reports over the course of the last several months. Standard Charter, as example, was reported to have to stop its QDII sales, primarily because no more quota. We've had fund managers that are running QD products. They're seeing significant premiums over NAV. There has just been a constant drive for local investors to get exposure to non-RMB or non-Chinese asset classes. So that's why this came as a bit of a surprise. A lot of conversations that you will have heard, a lot of news reporting talking about the weakness of the renminbi, issues over capital flight and the likes. The last thing in such a scenario you'd expect is for the policymakers, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, to come out and issue additional QD quota. What I can say, and I think this is pretty accurate, is 2.3 billion, let's say, 53 entities. We're not talking a lot of quota per entity. It averaged at around 50 million, which is somewhat around the QDLP program. My outlook is that this was an approach taken to get everybody a little bit of something, and that in the next couple of months, we will potentially see additional quota in size issued to those entities that actually can go out and deploy it. So an HSBC, a Citibank, a Standard Charter on the banking side of issues, as opposed to some of these wealth management businesses. There's a lot of focus right now on groups like, I think, Amundi and their joint venture with BOC, or BNP Paribas and Agbank, Goldman Sachs, ICBC. Certainly there's going to be demand at the wealth management platform, but really where demand has historically been found is among the global banks that have global product on their shelf. But I think it's important to note that a single data point does not make a trend. The question really comes down to whether or not additional quota in size will actually be issued over the course of the next several months. My perspective is you will see it probably in July or August, followed by additional quota later in the year. But I think what's more important is a larger trend underway. And that trend, as I've titled this video, is a refocusing on cross-border programs. It's not just QD. The QDLP program, this has been sort of a constant in terms of global groups entering primarily Shanghai, Beijing to a lesser extent. And there's been quota issued to various participants over the course of the last year. But now, for myself at least, it's looking towards Hong Kong. We have the July 1st anniversary of the handover. It is very often the case that in advance of the anniversary, Beijing will provide some, call it a gift, if you will, that's financial service oriented. And there's a lot of discussion right now that we're going to see an expansion in not only the mutual recognition program, but also in the Greater Bay Area focused Wealth Connect scheme. Both of these have seen significant demand, much like QD, over the course of the past 6 months. And I think what you're going to find is Beijing having a very strong willingness to provide support to Hong Kong. I don't think is been overlooked by many of you that while China has witnessed an enormous amount of negative headlines over the course of the last year, so too has Hong Kong. And I believe that this has not sat well with the leadership up in Beijing. And to that, it makes complete sense, at least to me, that you would see a refocusing on these cross-border programs, an opportunity to expand access, and not only that, but product. I think Wealth Connect is a really good example where right now 95% of all demand is funneled into time deposits, 5.5% dollar deposits in Hong Kong. I'm expecting you're going to see a change on that front. The big question, I think, is whether or not, and this would be either through mutual recognition or through Wealth Connect, the introduction of registered product being permissible as product to be sold through these programs, as opposed to just domiciled product. Now, I won't bore you with all the details on what these mean, but I think it is increasingly evident that you are going to see cross-border take a much higher priority, both within policy, but also at a competitive point of view. Like I said, QDII on Friday was great. It's a single data point. But I've been doing this long enough to know that there will be more in the weeks ahead. Where we go post July 1st, that's a little less clear. But I will be sure to keep you up to date, and I'll jump on here when I find things that I think are important enough to share. Until then, have a great day, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.